Hi everyone, welcome to the Storied Church YouTube channel. My name is Jason. So glad you're taking time out of your day to be here, especially if it's your first time. I just want to tell you welcome. I'm so glad that you are here. My hope is that as you listen to the words today, that they might be meaningful to you, whatever part of your journey that you are on, that they might encourage your spirit and lift you up, and that you might even share these words with somebody else on your journey. If you want to find out more about our community, there's a QR code right here, and also there will be a QR code all the way up through the sermon as well, and you can find out more about our community that way. We also do midweek gatherings at Trackside, first and third Wednesdays at 6:30, and so if you're just looking for a place to gather some community, we'd love for you to join us. Come by. Commitment is light. Conversation is good. It's just about being around people, and we would love for you to gather with us on Sundays at our gathering if you're interested in that. That's every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. here in Mebane, Alamance County at the Mebane Historical Museum. Every Sunday on our YouTube channel, we begin with a collect that we invite you to carry with you throughout the week. And so I invite you to begin this time by just taking a couple moments to pray and reflect with us before the sermon.
I know we've had new faces, and I was gone for a while because, I don't know, January happened, so was crazy, and was back last week, and now I'm back this week, and Jason had reached out and said, feeling like preaching someday? And I'm like, put me down. So here I am. I always feel like I start with a lot of caveats when I give my sermons, pontifications, reflections. And this is no different. I'm known for teaching more of a feminist theology and bringing the female voice out of the Bible. That's not today. Because I've been taking a detour and been really reflecting and thinking around fundamentalism. Why do people are attracted to fundamentalism, cults, religious trauma? How do we heal from religious trauma? Like, that's been stuff that's just been roaming around in my heart. And then on Wednesday, last Sunday, I said, well, you know what? Look, I wasn't even thinking there for this sermon. I was thinking more, I was like, let me see what questions other people are asking and do a sermon around that. And I put that out there on our Facebook Messenger and got 0 responses. So, in hindsight, then it hit me, because of a lot of the work and the stuff that I'm doing, is people are coming into this space, not everybody, but people are coming to this space having been deeply hurt by a religious community in some cases. They have seen their vulnerability be put on display or be used to guilt or shame them in my opinion, as a way to control them. And so I realized in hindsight that was probably a very vulnerable question to put out there, especially for people who aren't yet ready to share that vulnerability. They haven't yet built that trust that the vulnerability wouldn't be used against them. So when on Wednesday I was literally at my table and I got the email from Jason, he was like, yeah, so really, what are you preaching about this Sunday? He said it in nicer terms, but I was feeling that. And so I did go to the lectionary, and if you're not familiar with the lectionary, it's sort of I don't even know who comes up with it, but I went to the Vanderbilt one. People smarter than me, I guess, get together, and they pick the Bible verses throughout the year to kind of guide with a theme. I don't even know if it's with a theme, but they guide. And so I actually found a few that really connected back to this idea of, in my head, it's healing from religious trauma, taking back kind of our message, our mission in the church is how do we reclaim church as a Christ-centered space. And what does that mean? So I may meander a little bit today. I apologize. I have tried to find a nice organic flow, but I really am bringing you into thoughts, questions, a fateful journey that I have been kind of undergoing this last year as I've really tried to be a listener to, and really it's been more people online, like YouTube videos and podcasts of people who have been deeply hurt by what's supposed to be a church of love and are still trying to figure it out. And as a person who is within a Christian church, who claims to be a Christian, not to go in there and say, well, yeah, but my church doesn't do that. But to go in there and listen with an open heart and figure out, what do I need to do differently so I am not a person that's perpetuating trauma, so that I am a person of healing. So that's my overall message. Thank you. I'm done. So I do have this first question, because this kind of goes back to where this all starts for me, is what is a Christianese saying? And I'm sure you know what I mean by that drives you nuts. That when somebody says it, you're like, God, roll your eyes, like, why do we have to say that? Does anybody have like a saying that has been...
God works in mysterious ways.
God works in mysterious ways. I hate that one, right? Like it's they call them like thought-limiting responses. And I'm like, well, yeah. But how does it help me now? Yeah, thank you.
It's not the person, it's the sin.
It's not the person. I hate that one because it's not even a sin. But yes, yeah, it's to try and make us feel better. Yes, I don't hate you. I hate the sin. But when you say that, you really are.
All are welcome.
All are welcome. And then the actions show you differently, right? Yeah. Anything else?
Toughest battles to the strongest soldiers.
Ooh, I haven't heard that one.
Yeah.
Toughest. Oh, God, yeah.
God gets the toughest battles to
Yeah.
the strongest soldiers.
Yeah. Oh, I hate that one. That's been the last 3 years for me. What? What? What?
God will never give you more than you need.
Oh, yeah, which isn't even in the Bible. It literally, I think it was from like, huh? Yes, maybe that one's in the Bible, but that one's not. That one's actually like from a speech from Abraham Lincoln or somebody like that. I think that's what I remember reading. Yeah. Yeah, some of these things get tossed around. Mine is #blessed. You know, even before it was a hashtag, blessed. I'm blessed. How are you doing? I'm blessed. Thank you. I had a colleague once so I should say I was a teacher. I taught engineering at the high school level for about 10 years, for the last 11, almost 12 years. I've been working with schools, first around North Carolina, now around the country, on project-based learning in STEM. So I am solidly in the K-12 public education space, right? So when I share this story, I am coming from a public school sharing the story, not a private school. And the last school that I worked at, I had a colleague who in their email would write, "Have a blessed day," at the end of everything, which on one end just upsets me because we're a public institution. That's not professional. We're separation of church and state. I think we're trying to value signal, I think is the buzz term now, of like, yes, I'm Christian and you're not, or you should be feeling good, I'm feeling good, right? So it used to drive me crazy, especially when the email was not in a friendly tone. So what I read at the end of it, and I had another colleague that was saying, he's like, she's just saying, have a F you every time. Like it really did feel like a giant F you on the page every time I read it, especially when we were trying to work through an issue. Email's probably not the best way for it, but it would drive me insane. And then later on, in that same school, we were at a staff retreat. That was sponsored by grant money. Public education doesn't have that unless you get federal grant money. And we actually did have federal grant money at the time. So we went on a staff retreat, and it was a whole school retreat. And somebody got up at the dinner, and they were going to pray before the meal. Again. But I'm like, okay, I'll go with you. And I kid you not, they started the prayer with, I had to write it down so I wouldn't forget. If you are a Christian, pray with me, and if you're not, we'll pray for you. Yes. Yes. Right. Yeah. So, and I remember, and the reason why I remember that so well is because I was like, I don't want to pray now. Right? I'm Christian. I have a faithful relationship with God. I pray every night, or I try to. Right? And sometimes I forget. But like, I find myself when I need that moment, I'll do a breath prayer, or I'll try. Like, I find myself as a prayerful person. But those words, I was like, well, now I don't want a prayer. Because I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be a part of that message that is that if you are not our kind of belief system, or even if you don't believe in God, you can't be part of this. Because to me, prayer is a sacredness. It's a complexity. It's a mystery of connecting to the divine. Nobody should be the keeper of that. And I still regret not being brave enough to stand up and say something. You know, I mean, maybe I wanted to proclaim prayers for everyone. You don't have to be a Christian to pray. I don't know if there are any Jewish teachers in there, but there could have been. My friend who was next to me, I know, would consider herself agnostic or atheist. I did at least have enough guts to say, yeah, that was effed up afterwards. And I expressed I was just as shocked and disgusted as she was by it. And I apologized on behalf of all Christians. And because in the end, who are we to judge? So today, I was thinking about a title, and that idea is how do we reclaim the word blessed or any of these other Christian-y sayings who are meant to try and speak to something maybe greater, maybe speak to a mystery. How do we reclaim them, right? In a world that really is kind of unblessed, it's chaotic, it's complex. How do we take some of that back? And in some of my researching and thinking and really reading around and listening, digging into fundamentalism and listening to those who have been hurt by it, I do think that the Christian church as a whole, this incident, right, these two incidents are really symptomatic of something greater. And these happened like 15 years ago. I've been out of the classroom for almost 12 years, and this wasn't like the last year I was there. So we're looking at 15 years ago, at least. And it's only gotten worse, right? The divisions are getting worse. We see even in the Methodist Church that we are divided. The topic du jour is, LGBTQAI plus issue, right? Which shouldn't be an issue, in my opinion. But that's dividing, we're getting worse. And so, what really is Jesus' message? How did we lose track of this message of love and grace and healing, and instead replace it with rules and structures that divide? And I'm really trying to hear and listen to those who have been deeply hurt and harmed by not just the Christian church, any congregation, any faith community that has espoused rules above people. And I do think there's something insidious about what happens in these communities that perpetuate religious trauma, that people may not know it until years later of what they are experiencing. Because I do believe that we are all deeply spiritual beings. Whether you know it or not, that's my belief. And I don't think you have to recognize it for it to be true. It's where I'm coming from. So when an entity that is supposed to provide a safe space for exploring your spiritual side, for questioning and discovering how you can connect with the divine, uses its influence to gain power and control and money, I call it evil. Because you're hurting people in a way that hits at their core self. And I really want to make sure I say, if this at all has been your experience, and you still found your way here today, I honor you. You are truly brave. It takes a brave person to have been hurt by something that's supposed to love you, that's supposed to help you, that's supposed to comfort you, and still want and feel that need to try again. So I honor you. You are truly brave. And so I do feel like I should say, because I don't want to be part of that perpetuating the trauma, I want to restate that this is not me telling you what to do. I've seen, as I've gone down these rabbit holes, I've seen lots of sermons and digging into sermons by very confident men and some women, but mostly men. Sorry, gentlemen. Who use snippets of the Bible taken out of context to punish, to guilt, to shame, to put shame on people. Seriously, one I watched a couple weeks ago, the guy literally started a witch hunt in his congregation. He said that he had names of witches in his congregation and was like rebuking them. And it was just, I'm like, seriously? We're back in Old Salem? Like it's 2022, not 1622. So I think it's important to state that I am just as confused as you are. Okay? I don't necessarily say to have answers. I've done some reading. I've done some research. I used to be an engineer, so but when I was in school for engineering, we had to take humanities that specialized in an area. I took some religious courses, so I've got some of that. Right? So that is my background. I don't want to be up here and saying you have to use my opinion. It's an informed opinion, but it's still the opinion of Leslie Eves, and it's whatever weight that carries. I'm more here to open up a conversation than to tell others what to do or believe. I want to spark ideas, inspire thoughts or questions or how mights. I want to be part of providing a safe space for people to deconstruct their faith and to reconstruct their faith as they seek a spiritual connection with the divine. Some would use this book as a hammer. They claim it's all black and white and there's no other way to look at things than theirs, and I wonder if they're actually really reading the Bible, because the Bible's full of contradictions. It is a piece of wisdom literature collected over hundreds, thousands of years, stories, poems, wisdom pontifications, history of fallen kingdoms and people's place. In all, I think it's a collection of people striving to understand God and our place in the cosmic creation. Right? And that's why I always embrace the places where it doesn't quite make sense, because I think somewhere in there is the wisdom. Somewhere in there is the truth. So let's start unpacking. Whew, it's a lot. It's a lot of caveats to get to there. So on Wednesday, I absolutely heard from no one. And then I was like, well, my bad. That was kind of a vulnerable question. So I did go to the lectionary for inspiration. And the first one that was there is Psalms 119. And that's when it really hit me. On one reading of the psalm the snippet that we read today, on the surface, it could be used to say, see, this is why we need to follow God's commandments, right? It's telling us right in here, blessed, happy are those who are blameless, who say and who walk in the Lord, right? So you got to keep his rules and his precepts or you're just going to hell, right? We can use that to say that. However, I think the people who use this forget it's poetry. It's not commandment. Poetry speaks a different language. Poetry invites the reader or listener to go deeper and to mull over a possible truth and to find their own wisdom in the depths. And as we grow, how we approach the poem grows. What we take from it grows and changes and molds. And that's the beauty, I think, when we in the Psalms. They're meant to be re-examined, and as you reread it, you find deeper truths. One time I attended a Bible study, and I could only go one day because, like I said, I travel for a living, and before COVID, it was ridiculous. Now it's half ridiculous. So some days I'm here during the week and some days I'm not. I happen to be here during the week. And they were doing a Bible study on the Psalms, and I'll never forget this piece of wisdom that I learned from it, was that sometimes the Psalms are not meant, especially the praising Psalms, aren't meant for the person who wants to praise the Lord. It's for the person who's broken and doesn't know how to pray. And there's something in here to help us through that. And I remembered, I had the memory of after my husband died, and I think I told that to Kia, was I can't pray right now. I don't know how to pray. So pray for me. Pray gratitudes for me. Pray healing prayers for me. I was so deep in shock and grief, I just didn't simply have it in me. And so, however, but y'all did. But people in my life did. And I think that my spirit felt those prayers and were integral into my healing. So in my dining room, as I'm reading Psalm 119, and all of this is mulling around in my head, I had this person, a vision of a person struggling with their faith, struggling with understanding God's commandments, and a person really struggling to figure it all out, to find a way forward. I saw a person kneeling and pleading, writing this poetic prayer as a way to better understand what God is asking them to do. I feel like they're almost trying to convince themselves of something rather than to tell us what to do. So I wanted to kind of reread this and do a dramatic interpretation. I'm a little nervous about doing that in front of everybody, so don't look at me. Do it. Because this, I think it's the reading of it and the way it can switch it. So forgive my dramatic interpretation and hug me afterwards. Happy are those whose way is blameless, who walk in the way of the Lord. Happy are those who keep his decrees and seek him with their whole heart, but also do no wrong, but walk in his ways. You have commanded your precepts you've to be kept diligently. Oh, that my ways be steadfast in keeping your statutes. Then I shall be not put to shame, having my eyes fixed on all your commandments. I will praise you with an upright heart when I learn your righteous ordinances. When I learn your righteous ordinances, I will observe your statutes. Do not utterly forsake me. How can young people keep their way pure? By guarding it according to your word. With my whole heart I seek you. Do not let me stray from your commandments. I treasure your word in my heart so that I may not sin against you. Blessed are you, Lord. Teach me your statutes. With my lips I declare all the ordinance of your mouth. I delight in the way of your decrees as much as in all riches. I will meditate on your precepts and fix my eyes on your way. I will delight in your statutes. I will not forget your word. Deal bountiful with your servant so that I may live and observe your word. Open my eyes so that I may behold wondrous things out of your law. I live as an alien in the land. Do not hide your commandments from me. My soul is consumed with longing for your ordinance at all times. You rebuke the insolent, accursed ones who wander from your commandments. Take away from me their scorn and contempt, for I have kept your decrees. Even though princes sit plotting against me, your servant will meditate on your statutes. Your decrees are my delight. They are my counselors. Do you see the shift? Brain, oh, thank you. I was in theater in high school. Not going to tell you how long ago that was. So that's what I saw. And I think there's an innate longing for structure. Like to me, that's where I keep coming back to with what's the draw of fundamentalism. Again, why do we keep coming to a church? We do long for structure. We long for some rules. Life is complex and it's chaotic and it can hurt and it can suck, right? And sometimes, just tell me what to do. A lot of my students, because I was the engineering teacher, but I was also well, what do you think? How do you want to approach it? And we'd have to go through, Miss Eve, just tell me what to do and I will do it. Right? Tell me what to do to get an A and I'll do it. They didn't like my answer. Design it. Go through the process. They wanted a worksheet. They wanted, the check marks, right? No, I'm calling you to think differently, to be differently. Training your brain to think. That's my job. And I think that this is what draws people to a more fundamentalist approach to any scripture, not just in Christianity. We want a rule book for life. Life is messy. It's hard. For whatever reason, God has let us loose in this chaotic world. And I, for one, am still trying to figure out why. I feel like that's the big question. I don't have the answer. Bad things happen to good people. It sucks. Freaking sucks. I will say there were a lot of F words as I was really contemplating this. So I'm trying to if one sneaks out, I'm trying not to, but there was. We want some control over that feeling. Just tell me what I need to do. Just tell me what I need to do. I think that's what the psalmist was saying. Just tell me what I need to do, God, and I'll do it. But we know that sometimes, life isn't that way. And I think when we try to focus on structure over people, rules over people, in that search for finding our box, it's ripe for abuse. Just before this, I was reminded of one of the stories that I was reading, or that was blowing up in Christendom, fundamentalist Christendom, is if you're not familiar with Kenneth Copeland, he's scary, in my opinion. And he recently bought a plane. He raised $54 million to buy a plane for Jesus. I'm sorry. I don't remember that being in the Bible. And he further explained in his own words that, there's just so much spiritual warfare that happens in a plane and demons can take you over. I need my own plane to go do God's work. Seriously? I don't remember that as Jesus' commandments. Love your neighbor as yourself. Turn the other cheek. Give to the poor. Feed the hungry. Yeah, feed the hungry. Visit the sick. Visit the prisoners. I don't remember, give me all your money so I can buy a plane. Because I guarantee you he's not using the plane for the Lord's work. And I think that's the rub. Jesus' message is very simple, but it's very tough to do. And I think this is one of the reasons why he gave us very few commandments. Right? I think the only real commandment he gave was love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Treat your neighbor as yourself. Right? So it's love God, love your neighbor, love yourself. That may be the new triad. I don't know. But he gave us parables because he knew that life is going to change. Things are going to happen, and wisdom has to change with it. It has to kind of morph and flow. And he's speaking to something greater that is hard to understand. Words can't capture. I tried. And he faced so many times the religious elite in his day. So a lot of the New Testament is the Sadducees and Pharisees coming at him going, you guys are eating on the Sabbath, right? You guys are not giving to the You're not doing offerings. I don't think that's a story in there. But like there are 612, 613 laws in the Old Testament? 613. I was like, I pulled that number from somewhere. Thank you. And, and everybody's worried about like following them. And in Jesus' time, there was literally an economy built around sticking to those laws and what sacrifices needed to be made. And I think, if I could say, I think one of Jesus' messages was people before rules. And he speaks to this. I didn't have this read because I'm going to get to the Corinthians, but the other passage for today in the lectionary was Matthew chapter 5, and it is verse 3 through 11, and it's in the middle of the chapter, and this is a Sermon on the Mount, and Jesus is like turning over everybody's expectation of what it means to be blessed and what it means to be a part of God. And in this particular version, this particular passage, and you can go and read it, Matthew, I have 3 through 11. Oh, never mind. No. Matthew 5, chapter 5, 21 through 26. He's basically saying, if you're coming to church, it's not church, synagogue, with your gift, your sacrifice, and you got a problem with your brother or your sister or your friend, leave your sacrifice, go fix the problem before you come to church. Before you give to God, fix the strife. People before rules. People before process. And he starts that sermon with the famous Beatitudes. Right? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. He's really turning it on his head. And I do remember that blessed for the mourn coming back to me. I think we were in a church retreat, and we read that, and I was like, for the first time, I really saw myself in Scripture. Because it was about 3 years ago, and I was still deep in that phase. And for the first time, I think I understood what was trying to be said. That in order to connect with people on that spiritual connection, we also have to hurt. When I was in mourning, people came, right? It was in comforting me that they are finding salvation, and I was found salvation. And now when I see other people who mourn, I can connect that message with their message. I can connect with them. It's that brokenness. It's the times when I've been hungry or thirsty and somebody has helped me. Or it's the times that I've been hungry and thirsty and I don't want anybody else to have to experience that. Or when I have mourned and I know what that feels like, and I just want to help somebody get through that, knowing that it is transitory. Things do heal and get better. And so it was this passage, going back and looking at this, knowing that Jesus is asking us to heal, to focus on people over rules. You still kind of sometimes need the rules, but the rules should not be the barrier to really heal and help the people. And so I'm taking back the word blessed. That's one thing I'm doing. And sometimes it starts with how you're going to hear the word. I don't care what somebody's intention is. I am going to be a joyful child and in my innocence. And I'm going to hear, when I hear somebody say, I'm blessed, I'm going to try to hear, I've gone through some tough things, but I'm still fighting the good fight. Okay? And when I hear, have a blessed day, I'm going to try not to hear F you. But I'm going to try to hear it as go out and find the wisdom of today. Today's a tough day. You may be at odds. We may be at odds, but I'm still here for you if you need me. So that's how I'm going to try and find it. That's how I'm going to take it back. And that's good, because that's me, and I think we all start by healing ourselves and figuring out ourselves. But the epistles reading, and I'm usually not an epistles person, because sometimes I have challenges with Paul. I think it's the epistles where we start to see the church forming, where the rituals, the routines, the rules that now define the Christian church are starting to form. And I think what we're seeing is this strife within the Christian church is as old as time, right? It is there since the beginning. You got Paul people arguing with Peter people. Peter wanted to stick with the Jewish laws, and Paul was like, no, he came for everybody, right? Who won? Paul actually won that one, right? We aren't Jewish. We are something else, right? Came out of that. So when I was reading that Corinthians, it almost felt like Paul was also facing the same thing, right? There's Apollos and there's Paul, and the people are arguing, well, Paul said this and Apollos said this, and it just kind of gets into this fighting. And it sounded like what he's trying to say is we're having the wrong questions. We're asking the wrong questions. We're having the wrong fight. It's the wrong focus. Instead of fighting amongst ourselves, we need to go out and do God's work. Let that shine. And to paraphrase the Wesleyan quote that Jason read last week, go out and do all the good you can in all the ways you can for as long as you can, right? And yes, you will stumble because we're complex people, and sometimes we're going to be wrong, and then we're humble. But I think we do it as much as we can from a place of love. And love doesn't always mean being tutti-frutti or unicorns and rainbows and sunshines. Sometimes love means saying the tough thing that needs to be said in a way of love. And when you're tired, rest. Allow others to do for you so that they can be blessed in helping you, and you can feel blessed by receiving the help and receiving the love. I wish I knew exactly how to heal the divide that's happening in the church. I almost feel like it's a good one. I think we're having good conversations. We are talking about what maybe defines a human and how do we connect with each other. And I hope we are going to come out of this with a deeper understanding of God's messages and a more healed version of what Christianity is. Because I can't take it anymore of hearing how people have been hurt by the church. I mean, I can take it. I still want to listen and hear, but I just wish it didn't happen. I don't necessarily have the answer for that. And I can't control what they believe or what they do. But what I can do is to stand in my truth. And I can ask you guys to stand in your truth, whatever that be. And when the time comes, and if I am ever at another dinner where somebody says, if you're Christian, I'll pray with you, pray with me, and if you're not, I'll pray for you, I want to be brave enough to share my truth in that moment with an attitude of love and of acceptance, but firmness, that this is not God's way. And I guess to some, I hope that these words inspire you on your journey, and thank you for being a part of my journey as we seek to understand God's divine love. Amen.
I'm glad we didn't answer your question.
Okay.